choice. You don't accidentally pluck those out. You don't necessarily have to do this step, but I find the Alright, so today we're going to tie a new frog pattern that I have out. This is going to be available in Montana Fly Catalog in spring of 23. So this is a fly that I use a lot for trout and bass and pretty much anything topwater. So we're going to start basically with the back end. This is going to be an articulated fly. So what I have here is a Gamakatsu Finesse Wide Gap. I believe this is a 1/0. You can choose size based on, I guess, type of fish you're fishing for. For me, I like a little bit bigger gap. It provides two things: better contact surface for hookups, but also keeps the fish from swallowing it too deep. So anyway, this hook has been proven in my box to be pretty deadly, so we're going to use this one. So basically what we have available to us today are a lot of synthetics. So I'm going to take advantage of the Cohen's frog legs. I'm going to use a medium for this fly. And as you can see, get the thread started here. I actually markered this one up. So when I say markered, that's probably an incorrect statement. Basically, I used a fabric paint and then marker to do the details. You don't have to do this, but if you want something that looks more a little realistic, this definitely adds a little bit of that to your fly. So anyway, we're going to start with our thread. I'm just using a 3/0. I think this is Dansville 210. You can use whatever color you want. I prefer white because it kind of matches the underbelly of the fly that I'm going to tie here. So then we're going to just tie in our legs right back here before the bend. You want to make sure that they kind of stay up on top of the hook so it doesn't roll off to the side. So you'll just have to manipulate it with your fingers as you go. And then we're going to tie that right up to the end of the tab. Do a wrap or two underneath. Kind of lock it in. So it should look like that. Alright, so for the next step, we're going to use some rabbit to do a highlight over the top. Add some more color and movement to the fly. And we're just going to tie this right in at the base of the legs. Now I'm going to extend that rabbit hair back to the crotch of those legs. If you see right here, kind of where that gap is, I'm going to take the hide and kind of space it out to that point. And we'll come in with a loose wrap or two. Try and get any trap hair out of there. Cinch it down a little bit. Alright, now we're just going to flip this back. This will be like a mohawk. When we're done, we'll just pull it over the top. Alright. So now for the next step, we're going to use the Senyo 1.5 inch wide chromatic brush. This is live bait. You can use any color you want. Yellow would be a good alternative color choice. But these things are available in multiple colors. This is one of my favorites. This is just the white or live bait. And that's in the 1.5. We're going to tie this in just in front of our bunny here. Trim that back a little bit. And then I'm just going to take my thread right to the eye. So at this point, we're going to finish the back hook with this brush. and then we'll be done. So here's a little tip. When you're tying this fly, I like to take this brush and do 3 or 4 turns behind and underneath the legs. And this will do one of 2 things. It'll give it a little bit more bulk, but more importantly, it'll keep your legs from fouling on the hook during the cast. I'm just kind of pulling that hair up as I wrap. And then once we get done with that, I'm not going to worry about trimming it or anything. I'm just going to advance it right back to where I tied it in. And then we're just going to wrap this forward to the eye and tie it off. Like so. Anytime you're tying with brushes, when you get to that tie off point, just give it a little tension. That'll help kind of lock everything in there. I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. And I'm just going to take my fingernail, kind of bend that over so it doesn't cut my thread. Now I am going to kind of brush this out a little bit because these smaller brushes tend to collapse under themselves as you wrap them. Should be good enough. Alright, so now to finish this part of the fly, we're just going to take the rabbit strip forward. We're going to tie it in right at the eye. If you get any hairs trapped in it, you can just grab your whip finish tool and bodkin, either or, pluck them out. Alright. One more turn through there. Pull that back. Whip finish, and we're done with this part. Now I am going to cut this here at this point, but I'm going to take my scissors right at the front end of the hook eye, trim that off. I don't mind if I have a little tab there. It'll just catch water and create more turbulence. And if you have any really long guard hairs from the brush, you can just pluck them out with your fingers. I'll just put a little drop of clear finish here, loon flow, that soak in a little bit through your thread wraps. Alright, good to go. On to the next part. Alright, now to build the front, what we're going to do is we're going to use a 25mm shank. Pop that in, and now we're just going to pop the shank into the vise. We'll take our thread, get a good thread base on the shank and close that gap. carry that thread up onto that shank a little bit, like so, and try and close up some of that gap there. Alright, for the next step, I'm going to use the same rabbit. I guess I should probably tell you what color I'm using. This is the black barred mahi green and chartreuse. You can use any color combination you want. I tie these in multiple colors for different lighting conditions. And then we're going to tie this in. I'm going to extend that hide just a little bit into the back, help cover that gap up. Like so. Alright, now for the front, I'm going to use the 3-inch version of the Senio-chromatic brush. We'll tie that in next. This next step is optional, but I will typically do this to build taper and shoulders in the fly. I'm just taking a piece of 2mm foam, really doesn't matter which color, this just happens to be a color I don't use that much and I had a lot of, so it's just basically scrap. I'm going to tie in a piece and wrap it forward before I finish this fly. And we're just going to palmer that forward, overlapping each wrap. One more turn here. And this doesn't have to be clean or pretty. This is just to create bulk and taper, add a little bit more to the fly's ability to suspend in the water column, stay on top. And I'm just going to secure this a little bit with some thread wraps. I'm going to come back about to the middle. And at this point, I'm going to tie in 2 sets of rubber legs. I'm using a yellow and olive and a chartreuse and olive, but you can choose your own colors, all based on preference here. I'll tie in 1 set on this side. And then we're going to do the same on the opposite side. I'm just going to go through the middle, make sure those are skewered, hence my thread forward. Alright, well, I'm going to leave my thread here, but I'm not necessarily going to stop turning the brush at this point. I'm just trying to get it out of the way. So now we're just going to take these legs, pull them forward. If If you have a pair of hackle pliers, this is an easy little trick to kind of get them out of the way for now. I'm just going to clip them on there and hang it in front of my bobbin. And now we're just going to wrap. These flies tend to be a brush hog, but they're very durable. And when you're done, it gives it a pretty lifelike appearance when it's wet. And this will probably take almost the entire brush. And then when I get close to the legs, I'm just going to pop that off. And I'm going to give it 2 or 3 wraps between the two to kind of separate them a little better. Like so. And then come back in front. And when you start to get towards the end of this brush, I'll just take this hackle plier and pop it back on here. This will help. Working with a shorter section here. And probably 2, 3, maybe 4 turns in front of the legs. And we'll call it good. Trim that out. Alright, so I'm going to brush this out again real quick, just like we did on the back. You also have to be careful working around the rubber legs so you don't break them or pull them out. You can see how these fibers will get trapped in there. Alright, so now I'm just going to wrap back. I'm going to wrap over this brush just a little bit. Like so, and I can kind of see the shoulders that are forming here. Alright, so now we have a smaller piece of rabbit. This is the micro. And I'm just going to use this to give it a little bit of a collar. And I'm just going to tie it in right on top here, and then we're going to palmer this forward. We're going to try and get 2 to 3 turns in here. come in and trim out this excess. Clean this up a little bit so I don't have too much bulk around the eye. I'm going to wrap back just a little bit over top of this rabbit. Make sure that's in there good. And now we're going to pull the rabbit strip over the top, kind of like what we did with the back hook. Trim that out, like so. All right. And then for the last part, I'm just using a frog cutter to stamp out a piece of foam, using the frog foam from Hairline. We're going to tie this right on top. We're going to come in with a loose wrap or two. Make sure we get it seated properly. And then once we get that, I'm going to wrap back towards my fingers 4 or 5 times. I'm going to lift up the front, try and get a couple in here. This will help to lock that foam in. A couple more. This is the best way I've found to keep this from coming off. You can give it a little test, should be locked in there. And then we're just going to whip finish, and we're done with the primary build here. Alright, so now we got a little cleanup work to do. So you notice we have quite a bit of foam sticking out the back here. This is not attached by design. I'm going to pull this forward a little bit, bring my scissors in. I'm going to leave a section that's probably twice as long as the front. Trim that out. It'll look something like this. And then once I do that, I'm going to come in underneath, put a little bit of the loon flow on my thread wraps. Let that soak in a little bit. Alright, so now we can pull our legs out. I'm just going to pull them straight up. I kind of want them to kick back, not quite to the rear legs, but maybe about where the knees are. And then I'm going to actually pluck some of these longer hairs out to give it a better taper, which will take the fly up out of the vise to do. Just make sure you pull your legs out of the way so you don't accidentally pluck those out. You don't necessarily have to do this step, but I find the profile of the fly has a much more realistic silhouette to a frog if I do this. Especially after wrapping that foam in underneath. That is the Amphibious Assault. Ready to roll. You can kind of see how this fly will hinge. It'll sit like that on the surface on a pause. Kind of gives you a really nice silhouette. When this brush gets wet, it'll taper down and have a real froggy appearance to it from underneath. It's kind of what the fish sees. All right, thanks for tuning in.